In tonight's news edition, His Majesty the King urges the joint Jordanian-Egyptian Higher Committee to further boost ties in economic, trade and transport sectors. His Royal Highness Prince Ali, a candidate for the FIFA presidency, says football's governing body needs leadership that could restore the confidence of fans around the world. And Saudi-led strikes killed dozens of Houthi rebels amid warnings of deteriorating humanitarian conditions. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King met Egyptian Prime Minister Ibrahim Mahlab, who is leading his country's delegation to a meeting of the joint Jordanian-Egyptian Higher Committee. His Majesty told the head of the Egyptian government at a meeting at the Husseiniya Palace that Jordan is keenly interested in further cementing the already strong relations between Amman and Cairo. He said Jordan is willing to pursue coordination with Egypt on all Arab and regional issues to serve their common interests. The King urged the joint Higher Jordanian-Egyptian Committee to open broader scopes to bolster the partnership and cooperation between the two countries, especially in economic, trade and transport sectors. The Egyptian Prime Minister said his country is interested in forging closer ties with Jordan and thanked the kingdom for standing by Egypt in various circumstances. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour and his Egyptian counterpart Ibrahim Mahlab led ministers and top officials at a meeting of the joint Jordanian-Egyptian Higher Committee. The two sides discussed ties and ways to further boost cooperation in economic, investment and other sectors. Egyptian laborers are the largest foreign workers in the kingdom. Mansour said measures taken to correct the status of the laborers were meant to regulate the labor market. The two sides said the trade volume between Jordan and Egypt, which amounts to $600 million, still below ambitions, stressing the important role of the private sector in both countries to explore more opportunities and prospects for cooperation. Also on the agenda were gas and the exchange of expertise, particularly in the energy, renewable energy, electric linkage and oil shale industries. Towards the end of the meeting, the two countries signed 10 protocols in the field of water and irrigation, radio and television, civil service and other sectors. His Majesty the King welcomed a team of U.S. congressional aides who are visiting as part of a tour of the region. The King and the U.S. lawmakers discussed Jordanian-U.S. ties and developments in the Middle East and the world. The meeting, attended by His Royal Highness Prince Faisal bin Hussein, dealt with efforts to fight terrorism and bring about peace in the Middle East. The King stressed the need to counter the danger of terrorism and extremism within a holistic approach in a manner to boost international peace and stability. A royal decree endorsed a cabinet decision to appoint Brigadier General Salam Mahmoud al-Msa'diyin as Director General of the Public Security Department and promoted him to the rank of Major General. Football, and the world's most popular sport, has been plunged into turmoil. 7 top officials of football's governing body, FIFA, faced extradition to the United States on corruption charges after they were arrested in Switzerland. U.S. authorities said 9 soccer officials and 5 sports media and promotion executives faced corruption charges involving more than $150 million in bribes. But Sepp Blatter, the Swiss head of FIFA, was not among those arrested. Authorities also announced a criminal investigation into the awarding of the next 2 World Cups. U.S. and Swiss authorities announced separate inquiries into FIFA's activities. Here's more.
Swiss police in plain clothes descended just after dawn on this Zurich hotel where FIFA delegates are staying ahead of Friday's presidential election. They arrested 14 people, 7 of them high-ranking officials of soccer's world governing body over corruption allegations. U.S. investigators who've indicted the suspects say they face charges including racketeering and fraud as part of a scheme spanning more than 2 decades. FIFA spokesman Walter de Gregorio says the inquiry is painful but necessary.
And the timing may not be obviously the best, but definitely FIFA welcomes this process, and FIFA cooperates fully with the Attorney General of Switzerland and the Federal Office of Justice.
All those arrested are being held pending extradition to the United States. FIFA says its president, Sepp Blatter, and General Secretary are not among them.
The time has come at the worst possible moment for FIFA, just 2 days before incumbent Sepp Blatter, who will be 80 next year, faces a challenge to his presidency from His Royal Highness Prince Ali bin Hussein. Commenting after top FIFA officials were arrested in Zurich, Prince Ali said that FIFA needs new leadership that could restore the confidence of fans around the world. His Highness advocating reform and change at FIFA if he wins Friday's vote for the presidency, said he is saddened by the latest corruption scandal.
Well, I've been in football for a number of years, and on the executive committee of FIFA the last 4 years. And after talking to colleagues from across the football world, and I'm talking about fans, players, as well as member associations, I think that we all agree that it is time now for a change, to have a FIFA, a transparent FIFA, to work on the sport itself, on development. You know, I cannot see myself being a member of the executive for another 4 years under the present circumstances, and I'm willing to take the challenge. Of course, I mean, transparency is a word often used. Now it needs to be implemented, and I would definitely want to guarantee that that happens. We should have nothing to hide. It's the world's most popular sport, and it belongs to the world as a whole. We should restore confidence in this organization. As much as football is loved around the world, unfortunately the reputation is the opposite. And that will be only to the benefit of the sport. So for sure, that is key in the future of FIFA.
The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said Daesh shot dead around 20 men in the ancient amphitheater in the Syrian city of Palmyra today, accusing them of being government supporters. The observatory said the hardline militants who took control of the central city from government forces last week have killed at least 200 people and taken around 600 captive. Airstrikes staged by the U.S.-led coalition destroyed several vehicles on a highway near Syria's Raqqa province. A coalition statement said aircraft carried out 19 strikes on targets of Daesh terrorist group in Iraq and Syria in a 24-hour period. It said 7 airstrikes near Al-Hasaka, east of both Aleppo and Raqqa, hit Daesh tactical units, headquarters, fighting positions, and a natural gas production plant. However, Syria said it did not rely on air raids against Daesh or in Palmyra as they had done in Kobani. Syrian Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim dismissed the effectiveness of the U.S.-led aerial campaign in Palmyra that are not coordinated with the Syrian military and has focused on areas outside of government control.
Concerning the international coalition, as you all know, Daesh moved in a desert and not in forests. It is an open desert from east, west, north and south. We have not once counted on the coalition's raids. This coalition was active in Kobani in order not to let the city in the hands of Daesh, and this is good. After that, the coalition vanished as if it were a secret agreement between the coalition and Daesh.
Iraqi forces advanced to the outskirts of Ramadi on the second day of an offensive aimed at liberating the city in Anbar province, now held by Daesh group. The Iraqi Saudi-led airstrikes killed at least 80 people, including dozens of Houthi militants, near Yemen's border with Saudi Arabia and a military base in the capital, Sana'a. The coalition also hammered Yemen's largest military port in the Red Sea city of Hodeidah, which, along with its military bases, are controlled by the Houthis. The United Nations Secretary-General spokesman Stefan Dujarric said the suffering experienced by Yemeni civilians should be made a priority considering the ongoing fighting in the country. The UN official said many basic services in the southern Yemen city of Taiz have ground to a halt. Several hospitals have closed because of a lack of fuel, while access to other health facilities has been limited by the heavy fighting. Duerich gave no answer when asked about whether the Yemen talks scheduled to take place in Geneva will be postponed, but he had said stopping the war should be the main objective.
The primary goal here is to get the parties around the table and to stop the fighting. I mean, we're seeing an increase in fighting after the disappointment that the 5-day humanitarian pause could not be extended, and I think the suffering of the Yemeni people should stay at the forefront of our minds in order to try to get a political solution.
Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair has stepped down as representative of the Quartet of Middle East power brokers at the end of June. Blair wrote to United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon that he would step down from the role he has held since 2007. Blair is expected to remain active in the region, but not in any formal capacity. It is unclear whether a new representative of the quartet, which brings together the United States, Russia, the European Union, and the United Nations, will be appointed. Delegates from dozens of Libyan tribes met in Cairo at the invitation of the Egyptian government to try to find solutions to stabilize the war-torn country. Egypt is hoping the gathering of Libyan representatives will encourage rival factions to find common ground. Egypt's Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry made clear that he had high hopes of the summit. But already the chances of a breakthrough are looking slim. But the 4-day meeting began a day after Libya's internationally recognized Prime Minister Abdullah Thani said he had survived an assassination attempt. He said gunmen opened fire as he was leaving a session of the country's elected parliament. Reports said the Tobruk tribal leaders may be behind the assassination attempt. Britain's Queen Elizabeth said the government would pass a law paving the way for a referendum on the country's membership of the European Union. She made the announcement in a speech setting out Prime Minister David Cameron's legislative plan for the coming year. The monarch was delivering the Queen's speech opening Parliament, a tradition full of pomp and ceremony. The official announcement came as Cameron faces pressure to explain when the referendum will be held and what changes to the EU he wants before then. Cameron was re-elected on May 7 on a pledge to reshape ties with the EU before allowing Britain to vote on whether to stay or leave. The EU legislation will be introduced into Parliament tomorrow as Cameron begins a European tour to try to charm reluctant counterparts into endorsing EU reform.
My government will renegotiate the United Kingdom's relationship with the European Union and pursue reform of the European Union for the benefit of all member states. Alongside this, early legislation will be introduced to provide for an in-out referendum on membership of the European Union before the end of 2017.
Dutch boat team Brunel, skippered and navigated by two 50-plus sailors, won the transatlantic 7th leg of the Volvo Ocean Race following a thrilling finish after 9 days at sea. Dutchman Bowie Becking is undertaking a record equaling 7th appearance in offshore sailing's most prestigious event, alongside Australian navigator Andrew Cape, who is in his 6th race. That huge combined experience paid dividends after their lead at the front of the fleet was cut to a mile by their Spanish challengers in a pre-dawn finish in virtually windless conditions in the Portuguese capital. But Becking and Cape kept their heads and calmly steered Brunel home with 22 minutes to spare for their second stage win of the event. And finally, warm tonight in most regions with 24 degrees in Amman and southwesterly winds. Tomorrow, the kingdom will be affected by a heat wave that will raise temperatures considerably. Winds will be westerly to southwesterly brisk, blowing dust in many regions. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a warm night and very hot day tomorrow, with mercury levels soaring to the low 40s. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. His Majesty the King urges the joint Jordanian-Egyptian Higher Committee to further boost ties in economic, trade and transport sectors. His Royal Highness Prince Ali, a candidate for the FIFA presidency, says football's governing body needs leadership that could restore the confidence of fans around the world. And Saudi-led strikes killed dozens of Houthi rebels amid warnings of deteriorating humanitarian conditions. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.